Welcome to Bigfoot Society. If you have Bigfoot activity to report from the same areas discussed in this episode, please reach out to me directly after this episode. And if you'd like to be on the podcast to discuss a personal Bigfoot encounter, please reach out to me directly at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Do you wish there was more Bigfoot Society to listen to every week? Well, there is now. If you become a supporting member over at Patreon, you get a special members-only episode every single week on Wednesdays, and sometimes even more episodes. Head on over to patreon.com/The Bigfoot Society. And now let's get on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, I've got the privilege of talking to Matt Carter today from Southwest Pennsylvania. He's a former wildlife biologist that's had some very interesting things happen over the years that he's on the show today to share. And Matt, welcome to the program. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just really excited to finally share this. It's the first time I've talked publicly about this.
I know we have a lot of ground to cover. You've sent me a lot of really interesting things through email so far. So, Matt, I'm going to go ahead and give things right over to you. You're welcome to take us back when this first started happening, any context we need to know. And feel free to go ahead, man.
Okay, well, my name's Matt Carter. I got into wildlife biology around 2013. I was going to Bethany College, which is it's in the northern panhandle, West Virginia, the section between Ohio and PA. And that was kind of the first weird thing I ever experienced. We found what now I know is tree structures. And I found it weird because they tried to say that it was for the Boy Scouts who did have a camp in that area. But what the Boy Scouts did was they took iron and they made essentially A-frames out of it, almost like teepee style, I guess more like teepee style. That way all you had to do was just carry in a piece of canvas, strap it down, and you have a tent. So I didn't understand why they would be making these rudimentary things that weren't even close to that camp. I'm like, I guess there's merit badges stuff they could do, but that's really one of the only weird things before all this. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I'm sure people around that area have probably seen and heard crazy stuff because there's nothing there for. So fast forward to now, I'm staying with my mom, taking care of her because she's got a lot of health problems, and I had transferred to now it's Penn West, but it was Cal U at the time for their wildlife program, and so while I was going there, I've been staying here. And so everything started around 2020. Like I said, nothing really weird I've experienced here until then. But it was around late May, early June. The first weird thing, I saw a UAP out here. It was this giant ball of light that came up. It was about the size of a pickup truck. And I immediately contacted the only person I knew was Stan Gordon, and told him what had happened. And then that was weird. And then it's kind of rolled into, it was around early June, so it wasn't that much longer after this happened in March, that we were out sitting at our picnic table. Because our property, it's kind of a huge field. It's a 20-acre field. Just there's a mass amount of woods around us, and there's a pond way back. It's very kind of secluded up here. So when there's an apple tree that's kind of to the right of our house with a picnic table, we were sitting there, and everything was normal. And then suddenly I noticed the dogs were acting really weird. They kept looking to our left towards the wood line, and I'm like, what the heck? This is really weird. All three dogs, they're alerting to something. So I stood up. Being a wildlife guy, I figured, well, maybe it's coyotes. And my concern was the coyotes might try to lure our dogs away, and nothing good's going to come from that. So I stood up and I walked over, and I was staying there just looking, and then all of a sudden I hear plain as day a wood knock, and I was like, oh, that's weird. And my mom said, what? I said, you didn't hear that? I said, that sounded like somebody took a stick or ball bat something and just smacked the tree. And she said, are you kidding? I said, Mom, I would never joke about wildlife stuff. And she said, well, what would do that? what kind of animal. I said, well, you would need hands to actually pick something up and smack something like that. And then we heard a second one, and she heard it this time. And now the dogs moved from where they were to between me and like, where you can't see from the campfire. And then we heard another one answer it back further up in the woods. That was when I'm like, okay, time to take the dogs in. And it was very hard to get them inside that night. Like, they really did not want to leave, like, where they were. Like, they were really freaked out to even walk over towards that part of the property, because we kind of had to walk that direction to get back to the house. So that was like the first like real weird thing out here wildlife wise. And I'm like, okay, something's in that woods making noises that I don't know what it is. And that's a problem, because I've been doing this, for a better part of a decade at that point. And I've spent thousands of hours. Like, I worked on like the breeding bird atlas from West Virginia. I was doing 100 hours a week in the woods and all these other projects. So I'm very aware of what's in this whole area. So that was kind of it until that fall. So like a few months later. So that was around June. So around September, October, it was like 4 a.m, because I'm a bit of a night owl. So I was just sitting here on my computer, and then I started to hear what sounded like a hyena. And I know it's not a coyote, because I've since found a video from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which I can send you the link to, that they're actually talking about these vocalizations that they caught. And they're talking about Sasquatch, and like how they can't figure out, like, is that what this is? Because none of them knew what these exact sounds I heard were. And what was weird about it was I went over to the window and I was just listening. And as it sounded like it got closer, I wasn't able to move. It was like this wave of fear hit me, and it's probably the scariest I've ever been. And it's crazy, because I was on the second story of my house inside, but I couldn't almost physically move until eventually it got to the point where I was almost crying. I was so scared. And then the noise just went away, and then I could start to move, which makes me wonder if that was some form of infrasound that hit me, because it was very weird that I couldn't move. So after that, though, is really when things started to pick up. So now we start getting like odd bird calls at night. So what I mean is there'll be owls calling, but they're not owls. The voice is too deep, and the cadence and the rhythm is wrong. So typically, like, with like the great horned owl, you'll get like one long or one short, and then a couple more after that. This isn't even doing the right amount of notes, let alone the voice is too deep to be an owl. And at times it'll go from like the hoo, 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 then it'll turn to hoo, 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 like real deep at the end. So that's clearly not an owl doing that sound. And we'll get like other weird animal calls, like geese and other things coming from the woods. I'm like, there's not going to be a random goose living up in the woods. And this kind of goes on until like early June of 2024. So I've been trying to get back into shape just because I'm trying to be healthier. And our property, like I said, it's a 20-acre. It's mainly like an open field. And in the back left corner of that field, there's like a little stand of woods before you hit the actual woods. Like there's a little like stretch of like clearing between it. So it kind of it has a grade too. Like it kind of goes up into that corner, but then as you go up to the right-hand back corner, it's really steep. So it's a nice workout. Like you get this gradual grade, and then you come back down on like the right side, and you just do a circle. And I think altogether it's like a quarter mile or a half a mile. Like it's a decent walk. So what happened was I was walking back towards that corner, towards where that pond is, and I noticed everything went dead silent. And I mean dead silent. No birds, no bugs, nothing. And that's really weird for that to be happening in like early summer, late spring, when everything should be going crazy. Or something should be doing an alarm call, some kind of, there's a whole bunch of different species like blue jays, there's a tufted titmice, and something should be alarming to me coming back there. But nothing. So I thought that was weird that it got like quieter and quieter the closer I got to that pond. So I just sat there at the pond for a second. I'm like, it just felt off. And then that's when I heard what sounded like, I was convinced it was a person. But everything was so grown in at that time, I couldn't see, what was walking around. But it was clearly two legs because it sounded just like a huge person walking. And it kind of freaked me out because nobody should be back there. All of our dogs are like essentially like guard dogs. So everyone knows, just don't come up here. We've got guns. Southwest PA. So no one should be back there messing around. And it started to bother me because I said hello and there was no answer. So then I'm like, okay, what do I do now? Because I'm convinced this is a person, and I'm like, they're not answering. And, normally if there's someone out in the woods with you and they're not answering back, they don't have good intentions. So I said, just so you know, I can hear you. I said, I can't see you, but I can tell like the general area where you're at. I said, look, I live in that house over there. I said, so I'm not far. Someone will come looking for me. I said, and the second thing is, I'm not back here like to cause problems. I said, I'm just going for a nature walk, and I'm going to walk up to the opposite corner back here. There's a game cam that a family friend has. I'm going to put the SD card back in it that I got yesterday. Because that was what was weird, was the day before everything was fine when I was back there. So still nothing. No one's saying anything. There was no smells though. So I didn't smell anything this time, but there was something like you could tell it was over there because I could hear it moving around. So I said, okay, I'm going to walk up here now. Still nothing's talking back to me. So I start to walk up like the wood line, and I notice though, even though nobody's talking, it's paralleling me. So I'm like, okay, I don't like this, because now not only is it somebody, in my mind at this time, not talking, but they're paralleling me. So it's like they're stalking me. So I keep walking up, and as I get closer to where there's like this little watering hole that they actually dug with a I think like a backhoe or something, and they put a game camera up there, to see like what would come up there. So the closer I get to it, now I start to hear it's like a, almost like something smacking its chest. Not like a ruffed grouse, because that's anyone that's heard those, they know exactly what that sounds like. This actually sounded like what I was just doing, like something smacking the chest. And it was huge. And then the bush starts shaking. And that's when I start to hear, almost like the Sierra sounds, but without like words to it. So all this together is really confusing me, because I'm like, I don't even know what's happening right now. Because as a wildlife biologist, I'm trying to rationalize this. Because, it's like, well, that could be, in my mind, I'm still thinking that could be ruffed grouse. But then what's going to shake the, that's a huge bush that it's shaking. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on right now. And I was terrified, because I'm like, there's something here that's enormous. And, I did the dumbest thing I've probably ever done in my life, Jeremiah. And anyone listening, dear God, don't ever do this. I'm like, haha, maybe it's Sasquatch. Well, that was dumb to even take this as like not anything serious, or that I was in a bad situation. So what did I do? I just laugh, because this is so stupid. Like, even if you don't know what the animal is, you should never push to see, oh, am I gonna instigate it to doing something? I bared my teeth like a chimp would, and then I did the back to it with smacking my chest. That's what that noise is. That was the biggest mistake I've ever made. Whatever that was barreled through there then, and and I almost got to where I could see it, and I was like, nope. I started to back up then. I kept my eyes facing towards the wood line, and I just walked slowly back, and I just kept watching, because I'm like, I'm convinced at this point I'm going to die. Whatever that was crashing through there, and I could tell now, this is no joke. Like, things got real serious real quick, and I just felt like whatever's here, if it wants to, I'm dead. There's nothing I'm going to do. Because I know people say they've seen bear, but none of this fits a bear. Like the snarling, the shaking, the thing. I've heard bear do weird noises, but none of it like this. So I walk about 50 yards away. Like, I'm walking backwards now as I'm doing this back towards my house. It's bad, and this is by now I'm kind of going back towards. There's a map I'm going to send Jeremiah for people on YouTube. So it's kind of back towards the right-hand corner of the, I guess if you're looking at the map, it'll be towards the back left-hand corner. I'm kind of walking up the hill and backwards so that I can come back down, because right now the whole thing's like grown with hay because a friend comes and cuts it. So I need to like follow the path that's cut around the edge so that I can get back down to the house. So I keep walking backwards, and eventually once I get about 100 yards away from the woods, that's when I spin and I start looking down the hill, but I keep looking back over my shoulder because I'm convinced something's going to run out of those woods and it's going to grab me. And by the time I got back to the house, which I don't even know like how long this whole thing took, I was so shaken. By the time I got back down to the house, my mom's like, I had a feeling something was wrong because you've been gone a real long time. I was white, I was shaking, and I'm like, neither one of you are going to believe what just happened. And that, that's when I told him what had happened. And I'm like, but I don't understand how anything could hide like that out here. And that's when my mom's boyfriend was like, oh, well, if you're standing at the back of our house, it'd be like to your far left, back in those woods, he said there's a series of caves. And they're big enough that you could probably put like a small, like tiny house in and live there. So that's something I want to look into, getting back there, obviously with multiple people and possibly weapons for protection, and see like what's back at those caves. But that was like the main thing that's happened. And since then, things have been really like escalating. So when I say escalating, it's like now the vocalizations are getting more prominent, like they're getting more common, and you're starting to smell things now when you're outside. Like there'll be times it's like you can hear something walking, and it's like a combination of like, I guess the best way to explain it is wet dog, like something dead, and I don't know what. It's the worst smell I've ever had in my life. And the dogs will get freaked out at times like this too, because I put them out, like we have them on a routine. So I'll put them out at like 6, 8, and 10, and then that's it for the night. So normally this all starts around 10 o'clock, and then it'll go on. Like I said, those vocalizations I heard were like 4 in the morning. So that's been going on. And then this last fall, like what had happened was, we get a lot of UAP stuff out here. Like I've been in contact with like Stan Gordon, Tom King, and there's like a bunch of other people I've talked to, giving them all. And I've sent you the link too to my online stuff. That's like it's not public if anyone's wondering, because it shows like where I live and everything. But what's been happening now is like, since this is all kind of exploded, anytime I go out back to try to record anything, because it's always the same area. Like where I got chased out, we see orbs and lights and everything else. It's really, really weird that this is all seemingly connected. You'll get vocalizations now, and it'll sound like something's over in those woods getting pissed off that you're back there. And it's kind of like run me out a couple times. Like I'll hear it. It's that weird owl sound again, but there'll be multiples, and sometimes it's not just an owl. Like what I had caught on Christmas this year was, there's a video. First I put the dogs out, and they were acting weird, and we were hearing stuff. And then I was like, no, I'm not dealing with this. So what happened was, I went and I got I forgot a flashlight. It's like a law enforcement style one. It's like 1,000,000 candles or something crazy. And I come back out, and as you come up our driveway, there's like it used to be a house. It's like a one-room house basically, but it's a wood shop now. You hear something vocalized down there, and then immediately in front of me, it sounds like a red-tailed hawk, and then like over to my right, a blue jay. So it's like 1, 2, 3, like all together, like boom, boom, boom. They all vocalize, and I'm like, those birds would never, at like 10 o'clock at night, plus a blue jay and whatever the first one was, which I'm kind of I'm saying like 4-letter words because by this time I'm like super shaken up. And then something's walking behind me. You could hear it. It did pick up on the recorder on my phone, back behind me, back by the garage. And that's when I'm like, okay, time to go back in. I mean, yeah, that scared me enough that I just went back inside and I didn't go back out. Uh, it was around, this was right after this, that would have been this fall. Uh, Another thing that happened this fall, because it's kind of like been slowly building, like vocalizations, and then something like that'll happen. Now, the one time I did see something, and this is the only time I've seen something, this was around, I want to say it was around October. It was this fall, but I'm not sure on the date. It was around 8 in the morning. I came down because I'm staying up in the attic, which is a finished attic. As soon as you come down the stairs, like immediately in front of it is a window. So normally when I come down, I just look out to see, you know, is there anything out there, like just normal stuff. Well, what I saw on the tree line, which is about 150 yards or so, if I remember correctly, looking at Google Maps from our house. So it's a decent ways back there. It almost looked like it was a bush, but then I'm like, that's huge. And then the thing that confused me was that's never been there before. So I'm like, why is there? It was like a golden, a really dark, almost like fall leaves color. The best color that I can describe it as, it's somewhere between like fall leaves and that alleged video of the Sasquatch that someone took in Colorado from a train. It had that weird like brown, you know, like dead foliage to it. It was somewhere between those two colors. So I'm looking at it all confused because I'm like, where did that come from? Well, like, there's not just going to be a bush that appears. So I grabbed the binoculars and I started looking at it. And I'm like, that almost looks like it's a body, and it comes up to where a head would be, but I don't see a face. And then I got to thinking, I'm like, well, wait a minute. One of our friends just came out and put a tree stand up, like right over in that area. And he has no idea because I don't, you know, I've not really talked to family friends about this because, you know, a lot of them probably think that I'm crazy. But he put that tree stand up right back by that pond where the initial like interaction with me and whatever started taking place. And I'm wondering if it wasn't over in that area just checking it out, like, you know, like, what the heck, why are you back here? Like, who's doing this stuff, putting stuff up now? So I saw it and I thought about waking my mom up because I'm like, somebody else needs to see this. Like, it didn't even dawn on me to get a picture or anything, which that's honestly my biggest regret, is not getting anything on film this time. So I decided, wake up a minute, make sure you're seeing what you're seeing, because, you know, maybe it is, you know, you're just tired. So I go and do my normal, like, wake up routine, you know, coffee, the whole thing. I come back and I look again and it's gone. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense, because if it was some kind of a big bush or tree or something, it's not just going to not be there now. But that's the only time I've had like an absolute, like, I saw something that shouldn't be there. And it's like, I don't know. A lot of the stuff that goes on out here is vocalizations, and some of them are really weird. I've got my notes up because I like keep meticulous notes on all this stuff. So like back in October, it says the 29th, we had weird stuff going on. And it says the neighbor's dogs were freaking out. And then I know a couple days after that, yeah, on the 28th, it sounded like a huge crow, like it was super deep in sound. So picture a crow, but then like take it down like 6 decibels. Started to call, like behind, same area now, behind my neighbor's house. It's like down our driveway. And then it sounded like, I'm assuming it was something on 2 feet, because a crow's not that deep. It sounds like this, like it keeps like vocalizing. It goes across the road, and then the neighbor's dogs start going insane. It's like down the hill from us. So whatever it was crossed the road and cut back through like their yard. And at the same time, there's a farm across the road from us. It sounded like it sounded like a cow, but it was super deep. And it did this, it was so weird. It was like moo, you know, like a normal moo, but then it went moo. ooh, 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 right after the crow started across the road. So it was like boom, boom, like the crow, and then whatever that cow thing was answered it back. And that freaked my dogs out too, which I always take note of how the animals act because I'm like, maybe it's just me, thinking I'm hearing something. But when your animals like alert, or they start getting quiet or acting weird, that's when you should probably start paying attention to what you're experiencing because there is something to that then because animals will know if there's a predator or something weird around. And that's kind of been like the theme of this. Thank God I've had my camera with me because I've had my phone and I've had the dogs so I can record it and we can see at the end the dogs are acting weird for a lot of this stuff. That was actually the 3rd of December is when we got the vocalization of like the goose up in the woods. I'm like, that why would there be one goose, just one up in the woods? And it doesn't start calling until I walk over towards that fence line. It's 10 o'clock at night. Like, that doesn't make sense. I mean, if it was back up, like, way in the woods at that pond, maybe, but not in the woods itself. Like, that's a field in the woods. I don't know. There's so much out here like this that just doesn't make sense. And I've never had any location like this that it's like, I don't know what's going on because I don't know. I don't know how to quantify all this stuff because it just doesn't make sense. Because, you try to rationalize it as, it's coyotes or it's this or it's that. But then it's like, if you actually know anything about like biology or like your animals and stuff, you quickly realize, well, it's not this because the sounds are off or the time of day's off or like we don't have that animal. We've never seen that here, Like there's just so many weird things that go on here. And one of the things that I decided to do after the Christmas situation, where it was right before Christmas, we have a spot on our property where we dump like our food scraps for whatever to eat. It's not even close to the house, but there's like a huge drop off. So what I decided to do was there were apples that I needed to throw out. And I decided, well, instead of just throwing them on the ground, why don't I put them on this pile of wood that we have that's cut here? And where I put it, you would have to reach up from below to actually grab where the apples are. Like I took pictures and everything and a little video explaining what I was doing because it had just snowed too. My thought was, with all this crazy stuff going on, let's just it's going to be there anyhow, so it's not like I'm gifting. So I'll just put it in a location where you have to have arms to reach it. I did that, and those apples sat there for like 5 days until that night where all hell broke loose, and I got those vocalizations, like the multiple birds that I said were answering back and like kind of chased me in the house. The next day, the apples were gone, but I didn't find any tracks. And I think what makes this so weird is it's like there's the UAP stuff that we get. There's no rhyme or reason when we have it, but we'll get it. And I have 40 gigs of video and everything from out here. So it's not like, a few things here and there. We're getting all kinds of crazy stuff. And then you add in the possible Sasquatch stuff. I've recently found out that a neighbor that's about a mile from me had one of their horses attacked by a giant black cat. So I'm trying to figure out who that was and can I talk to them. And what makes this location so interesting to me, Jeremiah, is I've talked to Stan Gordon several times, and he had even said it seems that there's some kind of connection between black cats, UAP, or orbs even, and then Sasquatch, but we don't know what they are. And I've looked into like all kinds of like, could it be I'm seeing like, stuff monitoring like wells or this or that, and like, no, we can rule out all this stuff. So I don't know what is about this location, but there's really a lot of weird stuff going on. And what makes it hard is I'm trying to do this scientifically because I don't rule out any like the crazier stuff that, they can like portals and then whatever. I don't know. I'm open. I think when you do science, you have to be open. And I've been trying to approach all this as scientifically as I can because we can't talk about the crazy stuff until we get science to actually accept, hey, this is real and there's something going on here. So that's the angle I'm coming at it from. And what I'm going to be doing is this week I'm going to start ordering my stuff. I'm going to get, they're called song meters. So we use them like in ornithology. Like if you're doing a bird study, you can put them out and they'll record. They're just audio recorders, but they're for wildlife stuff. So you can put those out and they'll record actual, bird songs. You can either have them on 24/7 or set a certain time. And I'm going to put 4 of those out, and then I'm going to use 3 game cams, and we're going to see if we catch anything. And with the game cams, what I'm going to do, I think it was Daryl Denton. I don't know if you've talked to him or not. He does a lot of stuff at the Land Between the Lakes.
I have, yeah.
He suggested, because he thinks that they can see infrared. So he said what he's been doing is he takes those, the dividers you can get for like trapper keepers. They're like the see-through plastic. He said get the blue ones and cut them and put them over the infrared emitter. And he's had better luck getting like visual stuff with that. So that's what I'm going to do like this spring. I'm going to get those out and I'm going to see I'm going to canvas this whole area and see what can I get audio and visual. Because I have a feeling I'm going to be able to actually catch stuff with as often as this is happening. And I mean, that's kind of where it's at now. And I know, like the other stuff that I've talked to Stan about this fall, he said he won't tell me where, obviously, but he did say somewhere in Washington County, like, which isn't far from me, that someone saw 4 juvenile Sasquatch just walking through the woods. And he said they were like me. He said they're a very credible witness. Like he completely believed their story. So I know they're in the area, as far as like this general area. And there was even, I think it's from 79. There's a BFRO report, which has an audio recording too, where it sounds like you hear something almost doing like the Ohio howl, and then a dog's barking, and then all of a sudden the dog stops. And they said that it killed their dog. That's just like a couple miles from where I'm at. So that's like, and it makes me wonder though, that's just one, historical event. Like how many of these do people actually go through that they just don't tell anybody? And I'm sure you've probably realized a lot of people don't tell anybody anything. If they ever do, sometimes for years. I have a feeling that this is going to, when people contact you, that there's probably going to be a lot in this general area that have seen things that haven't gone public. And that's, it kind of brings me to like a project idea I have. It's really for like the whole U.S. Because, nothing like being a little ambitious. What I'd like to do, I don't need like locations like specifically or like names. If you've seen a Sasquatch, what I'd like to know is what color was it and what county was it in, and like the state, that was in. Because if we're trying to prove that these are real, there should be some kind of a pattern to like the color and like maybe even the size, like if you could estimate like the size of it. Because I know with like birds and stuff, like northern flickers, like in the north they have like the red shafted, so they've got like red on their feathers, but in the south they've got yellow. So there should be some kind of patterns to this that we can find out, like for their fur color and everything else based on, where they're at, like elevation, things like that, that'll help, I guess, add to the data that this is a real animal. And like I told you before we recorded, if anybody wants to get a hold of me, you can give them like my contact info, like my email address and everything, because I would really like to get a hold of other researchers and talk about doing that project, and like just maybe even investigating other areas in southwestern PA too. Because like I said, I have a feeling that there's a lot of people that see things that don't talk. Because I know my mom's seen things, like lights. She's been seeing lights out here for over a decade. And then I saw on the National UFO Reporting Center that other people from my actual town have been saying, like, I hope someone else has seen these lights, and that was over a decade ago. And she's heard, like, women screaming in the woods and all kinds of stuff out here that I didn't even know about until after I started experiencing it. But I know it's a lot, and I didn't even cover like any of the UAP stuff because there's just so much crazy stuff for that. And I've got like 6 different uh, softwares that I use to track things that I can rule stuff out with before I'm like, oh yeah, this is weird. But that's kind of like what's been going on out here. So I don't know if you have any questions for me or not. But
I absolutely do. Yeah,
it's a lot.
I've been following along with your Google Earth file that you gave me access to, which is very interesting.
Yes.
When you're able to see it. And so, okay, first off, so it sounds like we are saying this area is in the same area or region as Washington County, and we're leaving it as that pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. It's so I've also pulled up the same area in Onyx, not a sponsor, but if you guys want to talk, you can reach out because I know you use Bigfoot stuff in your app. So, anyways, I love Onyx. If I was in your shoes in this area, you're in an interesting area with a lot of woods. There's not too many people to talk to about what's going on in those woods, and I don't know if you've ever thought to reach out to that small number of individuals that are in public record.
Well, that's the thing. Like the BFRO account, of course, doesn't say who it was. It'll just have like a first name. But I'm like, that was from '79. So I'm like, I don't even know if that person's even still alive, let alone lives around here now.
I guess I'm saying more like if you're experiencing stuff on your property, these other places, they've got to have stuff going on.
Oh, they have to.
Yeah.
Like I would like to ask, but I guess the thing is, I just don't know how to approach people. I mean, how do you approach them? Like, hey, I heard. Like, I've been trying to think of how to find out who that person's horse was that evidently got attacked by the black cat. But I'm like, well, if I do find out who it is, so I just say like, hey, like I heard that your horse got attacked by a black cat. Like, I guess it's just because the weirdness of everything. I'm trying to figure out how to approach people without like making myself sound crazy or by like scaring them off.
Yeah, I know. No, I get it. It's like, I mean, I hear a lot of people use the, hey, ever experienced anything weird around here? Or, I mean, you got to have the way of talking to the person. You just don't want to knock on their door and be like, hey, let's talk about weird stuff. Although I guess maybe sometimes that does work. I don't know. You got to know your area, right? Like the culture in your area.
I'm thinking about getting like business cards made with the email address I contacted you with, the Proton one.
Okay.
And just giving that to people and being like, if you or anyone you know has anything weird in this area, this is complete. You can even do it anonymously.
So that's actually
contact me again.
That's super smart. That's kind of what I do too. And once you become the guy that's known for the weird stuff about your area or another area, now with the internet and things, you don't have to live in the area to become the guy for that area, which is really interesting to think about.
Right.
But yeah, that might point you in the right direction. Excuse me. When you talked to Stan Gordon about this, what was his reaction? Was it like, yeah, it makes sense for that area? Or he's like, oh, this is very unique?
This is very interesting. Because, like, I emailed him initially 4 years ago when I saw the UAP because I'm like, he said, typically people don't tell me. And I think I just kind of went into shock. And I kind of just reverted back into, okay, science this. So I got like all the weather data and just typed immediately what happened. And I was kind of like panicked and shocked because I've never experienced anything like that before. So then 4 years later, when I contacted him, he's like, "Oh, I've been wanting to talk to you, because of your background and everything." And then I explained, like what's been going on with the Sasquatch stuff. And he said, "Yeah, I'm not surprised." He said, "That area," he said, "Washington County in general, that whole surrounding area, that's a hotbed."
Okay.
He said, "There's all kinds of like stuff." He said, "In fact, someone just saw 4 juvenile Sasquatch in Washington County
Right.
alone." He said, "Like this fall." He said, I can't give you any more info." But I said, I have a feeling that there's a lot that goes on just in this general area. He said, "Oh, there is." He said that he had actually talked to the PA Game Commission. Like he's talked to them like actually on like a professional, like he went and did presentations on like UAP, Sasquatch, black cats, like a bunch of stuff. He's like, so they're well aware and they are interested in this. He said, and I have a feeling that they know more than what they're telling too.
Really?
Because he said, you've worked on, because I mean, I can just come out here and just say like what I did. I worked, when I was going to Cal, I was working with, it was my department chair at the time, but we were doing like wetlands restoration work. So I worked for like Friends of Fish and Wildlife, like Jose Teresito was like the guy that ran that. So it was like technically through the U.S. Fish, I don't know if it's U.S. Fish and Wildlife or the Game Commission. One of them was technically overseeing it, and then I worked for him specifically, And Stan said, what would have happened, if you'd have told someone when you were at work, like the Sasquatch stuff or the UAP stuff? And I said, Stan, they didn't come out and say it, but just how they reacted to other stuff. I said, if I'd have said anything like that, I wouldn't have had a job. And they'd have just laughed me off the site.
Oh, wow.
And I realized like how close-minded some of these people were, because we were at the site, and one of the girls I was working with said, hey, there's a bluegill in this wetland. And the guy in charge was like, well, there can't be, we didn't put any fish here. But there was a creek that ran right next to it. So, when it floods, everything gets pulled into the wetlands, and then you have, waterfowl that can like carry eggs and stuff too. And I'm like, well, first off, how do you know there's nothing here? So I walked over and I looked, and I'm like, I'm looking right at the bluegill. And it took me to do that and him to come over and physically look at it to even believe that something as simple as a bluegill was where it shouldn't be. So I'm like, I don't know how to even make headway then with something like this, if they're that close-minded. That they won't even believe that there's like a simple bluegill in a wetland.
Man, that is some wild stuff. I can't imagine working in a situation
It
like
is,
that.
and it was very frustrating, like between like that and then like, the politics, because I'd have to do like grant proposals and all kind of like it was a very stressful job. That's the only reason I don't do it anymore. Like for my main income is just because of the stress. Like the field work and everything, and the lab work, I love. I can do that all day. It's just the other stuff to it.
Absolutely. I want to ask about potential things happening around the property. Just to double check. Remind me, at any time have you seen tracks around the property?
No, and that's the surprising part. But there's a lot of this ground is really hard, because when my mom's boyfriend bought the property, I guess it used to be like essentially like a junkyard. So like a lot of this area is like hard clay and things like that. So I don't know how easy it would be to leave tracks. Maybe like up in the woods you could, because the ground's a little softer. But like around the house and everything, they even have a hard time putting gardens in every year, just because of the soil itself.
Okay, so it used to be
But
a junkyard.
I keep looking. Yeah.
That's really interesting. Have you ever looked to see if you can figure out who the previous owner of that junkyard was, and maybe see if they're still alive to talk to them?
I do know they're not alive anymore, because
gotcha.
he was like in his 80s when my mom's boyfriend bought it, and that was like back in the 80s.
Okay.
Like the guy actually built the house and all the stuff out here.
Another fun thing you can do is sometimes areas will have they'll have history themed Facebook groups for certain areas of the country. So you see if you have one for this area or like strange stuff.
The one group I did find, like, they have a podcast too. I don't know if you know the guys from I think it's Wild and Weird, West Virginia.
Oh yeah, Joe and Ron. Yep.
Yeah, because they knew the whole area, and apparently the bird guide that I wrote that I sent you, it's up on Amazon. They used for like the West Virginia like Master Naturalist program.
Okay.
that kind of blew my mind. I'm like, you use my bird guide? I didn't think anyone even did anything with it.
That's awesome. Wow.
But I've been talking to them because, like, you know, they cover all West Virginia, but especially like around like the tri-state area. Like, there's people in the group and stuff. So I've been keeping tabs too on like weird stuff that they've been reporting.
On the property, do you find a lot of like broken trees, kind of like twisted off trees or bent over trees? Any weird stuff like that?
That's going to be what I look for this spring, because to be honest, I haven't been back in those woods since I was chased out. I was that terrified.
Oh yeah, right. Makes sense.
But this spring I'm going back because I just bought a book. I can't remember who wrote it, but it's a book on tree structures for like supposed Sasquatch. So I'm going to use that and, you know, take a camera back with me and everything and see like what I can find. But that's the next stage, is like deploying like all the recorders and stuff and then going back in that general area and looking and seeing if I can find anything. It's just waiting on the weather to break a little bit because we keep getting all this snow.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those recorders you were talking about are very, very effective from other researchers that I've talked to. They're worth getting. They will give you some quality audio. So that is a great idea.
And they're super affordable now too. If anyone like is interested in getting these, like I'm getting the Birdsong Micro. It's less than $200 a recorder. So like anyone can afford that. I mean, they used to be really expensive to get stuff to do like bird surveys and everything, but now it's come down in price so much that it's extremely affordable.
I wanted to check about some other type of sounds to see if you've heard them on the property. Have you ever heard anything that would resemble a metallic type of sound, or a baby crying, or something calling names of people that live on the property, or voices that you know?
No, but my mom did.
Oh boy, okay.
She said she heard, and I'm gonna like really kind of try to press her on this because I know she doesn't like to talk about this stuff. But she did tell me that they heard it sound like a woman screaming. I don't know if she was just screaming for help or what, coming from the woods one night. That her and her boyfriend both heard that. And I know he's lived out here for 30 years, and we do have like bobcat stuff, but he knows what this all sounds like, you know. It's like there's times I'll play him a recording, he's like, yeah, I don't know what that is.
Okay.
Like, yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to guess that probably at this point, and I didn't see any in everything that you sent over or gave me access to. So you don't have recordings of anything yet, right?
I have that one from Christmas. I don't know if I added that yet. I'm gonna make sure tonight I'm gonna get everything uploaded that I have. They were like messing with the dogs, and what freaked me out was our one dog kept trying to walk over towards that area. So I'm like, my concern was they're trying to lure my dogs away, because I know I keep hearing that they don't like dogs, and I'm worried that they're gonna try to get the one because she likes everybody. She probably, if she thought it was a person, would run right over to it, you know? That was really why I came back out. That's why I came back out with the flashlight, because I'm like, I'm not having this, you know? I don't care if they're out here, just stay away from the house and don't mess with my animals.
You actually do have it in there. Do you mind if I play the audio from it real quick?
All right, I don't know what's going on tonight, but I'll tell you this. Please tell me that just caught on camera. There was something walking. You hear that? You hear the owl starting now? There's something back in. All right. That was an eagle or a hawk. Time to go back in because there's at least 4 of them out here.
Yeah, there was like definitely sound. That bird sound should not have been that time of day. That's crazy.
No, none of those birds should be talking to one another like that. And like I said, it sounded like there was something behind me. That's why I'm like, please tell me you caught that, because it was over towards the garage. Like I could hear something that sounded like a person walking. And then when you hear those other 3 sounds in front of me, I'm like, oh, I don't like this. You know what I mean? It's
right.
like I felt surrounded.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that's like starting to happen now, and I don't like that because you know, I don't want to have to shoot anything, but I'm at the point where it's like I'll defend us, but I'm not going to go like just shoot one. You know what I mean? But I will defend like our animals or myself if I have to. I mean, anyone should do that.
Yeah, I mean,
but I'm like, I really don't want. I just don't want that to escalate to that. That's not needed. You know what I mean? Like, keep your area, I'll keep the mine, and we can coexist just fine.
Yeah, I think coexisting is a good goal, and I definitely wouldn't recommend putting any food out or anything like that, and that just usually leads to bad
absolutely
time.
not.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm going to always make sure, too, that I'm respectful when I'm in the woods. You know, like I said that day, like, I'm not here to cause problems. You know, I told them what I was doing. Because I do think that they understand a lot more than what people give them credit for.
Oh, it is a definite high intelligence from what I've picked up from talking to people about this for a few years. It's high.
I think they're as smart as us. I really do.
Absolutely. I do want to also point out what you had said about when you got chased out and because you had pretty much beat your chest in response.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to echo that.
You know what? That might have escalated things now that I think about it. That could have been seen as a challenge.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I will say that because I've done the same thing, unfortunately, in Iowa last year. And he's probably listening. And brother, you're great, but we're going to leave it at that. But you're a great individual, but I'm never doing it again, because what happened to me afterwards is I started to experience what I interpret as being hit by infrasound multiple times. It was just an experience. I will never, ever do that again. Guys, don't do that. Please. It's not good.
Yeah.
Not good. As a scary night. We also ended up.
Yes.
It was 2 a.m. and our tent poles broke, and the tent came down on top of us. New tent. It's very weird.
That's a bad night. Yeah,
it's a bad night. So it is what it is. But I mean, no one got hurt, but it's very weird. Here's something else I wanted to ask you. So you've got a lot of weird things happening on the property.
Right.
Is the weird stuff sticking outside, or has it started to influence things inside the house as well?
Just outside.
Okay, good.
I've been I've been trying to really pay attention to that too, because I'm well aware of. I listen to a lot of episodes of your stuff and a lot of other stuff, so I'm well aware of what to watch for.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It is. I think it's part of the conversation. I honestly do, because, and I don't know why, and I don't know if anyone knows why yet, but just I noticed patterns from conversations over the years And more often than not, someone experiences or has an interaction with a Bigfoot out in the field, and they can bring stuff home, or stuff can start happening at home. It's really weird.
Yes.
So I think that's definitely part of the talk. So I'm glad that it's whatever is that connection is staying outside and stay out there. So
right.
It'd be interesting to hear what you're able to capture once you put the song meters out. That will be extremely interesting.
Yes. One thing I thought about doing is, because Daryl had talked about like how they like, I think it was Daryl talked about they like glow sticks. Well, I found you can buy those ones that you're supposed to use like an emergency to last 24 hours. So I'm like, what if where I put those game cams, if I set one of those somewhere, like where you can see it on the game cam, I wonder if I don't expect to catch anything video-wise, to be honest, but I'm like, if I put one at each of those spots, will I ever catch anything grabbing it, or it just moving? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that would be a cool experiment for sure. Matt, this is going to be really interesting to see, what happens when you start being able to get some recordings and maybe start to have some researchers come and check it out, because it sounds like you are definitely wanting, if there's researchers in the area, to contact you about this area. Yes. Right?
Yes, because I would love to have like some like legit researchers. Maybe they even have more equipment, like a parabolic or anything like that. That would be interesting to get out here too, to see if we can catch anything during these nights, like through a parabolic, a parabolic microphone and stuff.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know, maybe there's other stuff on frequencies too that I can't pick up in my ears that we could pick up. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing like what exactly I'm going to catch out here, if anything.
We will definitely check back in, and if you're able to, I'd love to hear if you're able to get some interesting recordings, which I'm sure that you will. But Matt, it has been great chatting with you on the show today, and thank you for coming on. I do have a few other things I want to talk to you off air about, but yeah, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, not a problem. Thank you so much for having me. And like I said, if anybody wants to reach out, Jeremiah has my email address. I'm more than willing for him to give that to you. So just go ahead and just probably put in the subject, like, Sasquatch or something, like, so I know like that it's someone from, that you're getting a hold of me through Jeremiah.
Absolutely. Just want to take a few minutes to say thank you to you, all my listeners, for listening to the podcast. Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's a list: the Subtle Lake area of Oregon, Rainbow, Oregon, McKinsey Bridge area, Sweet Home, pretty much that entire area, the north part, if you get what I mean. I'll see you back next time, listeners. Sasquatch Summerfest this year, July 11th through the 12th. It's going to be fantastic. July 11th through 12th in Green Waters Park in Oak Ridge, Oregon. And listeners, if you're going to go, you can get a 2-day ticket for the cost of one if you use the code BFS, like Bigfoot Society, but BFS, and it'll get you some off your cost. Priscilla was nice enough to provide that for my listeners. So there you go. I look forward to seeing you there. So make sure you head over to www.sasquatchsummerfest.com and pick up your tickets today.